Yo, what's going on people, and welcome back to the channel once again. This video is going to be in the style of Vory, like a dark melodic beat, so I'll show you this. And if you like that, then stick around and I'll show you the process. Just before I get into the video, I just want to let everyone know just to drop a follow on my Instagram, that'll be on the page, and subscribe down below, and to my beat channel, that'll be in the description. So the first thing I used was this Studio Grand by Pluck Keys, and if you go into the Explore tab, you can use actual different pianos and sounds. And then these are the chords that I played, just a lot of inverted minors. Then the second half of them chords, I had like just a highlight keys that were higher accents and higher notes, just to make it a little bit different. And then, as I usually like to use on a piano, is this valve compressor. I didn't go too mad with the detune and flutter. I didn't want, because it was already quite vintage and had that texture, so I didn't need to change anything on that. Then a reverb, low reverb, because I just wanted to make it in the background, not heavy on the reverb to just drown the space. And then, as usual, I took out quite a lot of, like, around the 300s, because there's a lot of sounds that I didn't like there, and then I just boosted quite high, like the presence on the 3 to 6K, because it was getting quite lost. Next thing I added was this like organ, but it was like arped a little bit, so it had like a delay and a release that was like tremoloed sort of thing, so it sounds like this. And with that, I just kept it the same pattern as the first keys. Didn't need to change any of the notes or anything. But then I brought it down in the levels just before it went into the channel phase. And then on that, I just put on this just vinyl tapes. Didn't put any preset. Quite a bit of reverb. Wanted to drown it out a little bit because I wanted to make it more of like a pad feel, not just keys on organ, because it was very harsh. Then EQ'd the lows because it was quite a low octave. Then a flange, just give it that modulation effect, just to give it a little bit more of a, like a flavour. And then, as I said, the tremolo, I added this side chain, so it just like pulsed a little bit as usual. And then I put a 1/16. Next thing I added was these flutes that just follow the bass notes. That sounds like this. And for that, it's very dry but had that cool texture. And then with that, a reverb, not too much, because it was quite I wanted to have it like in the background again, just to fill that space. I used this Reels lo-fi, and then I took out some mud in like the lows and highs because it's quite resonant at the top end. Then with the flute, I routed it to a send track, so it has these effects on, lows and highs taken out again. I used this spaced out like echo reverb again, just to give it a different modulars, and then I used this like a bit crusher just to give it a little bit more warmth. Then next I added this music box bell that I took up an octave that sounds like this. I took out some of the high pitched notes that I just didn't want from the piano. And then with this, I took out the attack a little bit, sustain halfway, and then I didn't want a lot of release because it was going to be an ARP. And then I used this arpeggiator tool and just put the time on 0.12. And then I used this sympathetic verb, didn't want it too heavy in it. Took out quite a lot of highs and lows just because I wanted it to be more of a texture in the background to give it atmosphere. Then quite a bit of delay, and pan from left to right. And then next I got these vocals from Arcade that sound like this. Then when them vocals, I wanted them to bounce off the keys as usual, just give it that rhythm. So I just placed them on the ends of the accent note. And then with the Alter Boy, I just brought it down just to give it like a low feeling. Reverb as usual. I filtered it, but I used these X and Y's just to give it like a drowned out low pass filter. Then I filtered it again with an EQ, just take out them highs because I wanted it to be very low in the middle. Then a delay, and I used this triplet just to give it a different delay from bounce to left to right. And then next I added this Perc loop that sounds like this. So then I put in Edison and downsampled it to 1K, so it sounds like this. And then with that, you can't really hear it much, but it's going to give you texture if you do this. So I put it in the channel rack and I put a 12 semitones just to bring it up an octave. And then that way, you can make it more high pitched, just to give it that extra texture so you can hear it a little bit more. And then I use this synthetic flange just to give it like a modularized effects, and it just gives it a little bit of a more texture and taste. You can proper like feel the bounce from it. And then I just filtered out a lot of highs and lows because it was from the space modulator, it's very resonant, so I just wanted to get that out just because it's harsh frequencies that don't fit. Then next I just added these chord strum keys that sound like this, and then for that just reverb, EQ'd it, and just put 2 different delays on it just to give it like an extra flavor in like a later phase of the delay. And then with the sample I tracked it out and put it down by 3 semitones, so it sounds like this. And then with that, you can see the Perc loop that I added has that extra texture and flavor. Just gives it a cool bounce, but it isn't too harsh, and it just feels like drowned out a bit. It's cool. It fits with the vocals very well. And the next, I just added the bass notes into the bass. It just sounds like this. I didn't put any effects on that. So now it brings me to the drums. The drums, they didn't need to be too heavy or too common throughout the beat, because that would just make it hard for space and melodic people to fit in. So I used the hi-hats to drive the rhythm. And then we're changing the velocity, it gives it a proper feel and just makes it bounce better. Then I added all this extra percussion that sounds like this with the hi-hats. It just drives the beat very well. And then I added this accent 808 at the end that just sounds like this. And then just added the kick, so it sounds like this. Then with the drums, I just leveled them all out. I didn't really put any EQs on them other than the hi-hat because it was a little bit stale. That's the only word I can say to really fit what I mean. And then a flange on the second hi-hat just to give it that cool texture. And then just took out on the 808 just a low, just because it was clashing with the first bass. Then altogether, this is how the beat sounds. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole beat, and if you enjoyed that, slap a like below, subscribe, follow my Instagram, that'll be on the page. The sample pack is coming soon, guys, so don't worry about it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and peace out, people.